So who is an influence that comes to mind right away?
That would definitely be Cher in Moonstruck. She's looking for joy and light everywhere that she goes. She's not delusional. She's the best part of everybody's day.
I don't even remember what that movie's about, except
Erica,
that
you have to watch
this movie
Moonstruck.
again.
You have to watch Moonstruck.
Cher
It's
in
so
Moonstruck.
good.
this is Shaking Out the Numb. I'm Erica Heilman. This was supposed to be a show about musical influences, which apparently is something musicians get asked about a lot. But it turns out Nick and Amelia don't really like talking about musical influences, and I don't know that much about music. So instead, it turned into a show about other kinds of influences, like Cher, and also the really important people and moments in our lives that become the ingredients for who we turn into and what we make. Nick and Amelia sat on their porch in Durham, North Carolina, and I talked with them from up here in central Vermont. And this is what happened. Welcome. So people ask musicians a lot about influences. What does this mean in the world of music? What is that? Is that something that comes up in every interview? And what is it about?
Influences come up in all of the early interviews you have to do.
Yeah. I think they're always trying to reduce something down to an easy reference point.
Yeah.
And maybe they're trying to understand a way that they could have come up with it.
What do you mean?
Well, sometimes I wonder if, when asking about influences, you're wondering how someone got to something. Or it's just like asking for a bread recipe.
And also, like, some influences stuff is just about, like, people being like, I know what this is because I know about a similar thing. So, like, with What If, people are always like, it's like Laurie Anderson, which it is and was a conscious influence. And then they're like, and it's also like Imogen Heap, which is like, that's just another person with a vagina that used auto-tune.
A vocoder,
They used
yeah.
a vocoder. Like, she just has breasts. Because she has breasts and I have breasts, now I'm like Imogen Heap.
That's the thing. It's like we always joke about how every singer who's, a femme person gets the like female vocalist tag at some point and then is compared to like other female vocalists, like generally of their skin color.
Which is why it's so fun to say, that's a great male vocal.
Yeah, we say that all the time.
Well, does that mean that Shania Twain is an influence for you?
I mean, Shania Twain is 100% absolutely an
Yeah,
influence.
let's not get crazy. Shania Twain's absolutely an influence.
Yeah, do you know how much I love Shania Twain, Erica?
It's like before it was just like, oh, you sound like Bjork and Feist because you're a lady.
Yeah, because you...
No one ever got on Daft Punk for ripping off Herbie Hancock. I mean,
no,
come
like,
on.
what the fuck?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So is marriage an influence?
Maybe.
Do you talk about that?
No.
No.
Do you want to talk about it?
No.
I wish you could see the face that she's making at me right now.
I don't. We haven't ever talked about it, and now we're talking about it because I decided that it was more interesting to be honest. But, like, also everyone just wants to be like, what's it like working with your partner?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's not for you.
Plus, it's kind of boring.
It's
It's the fallacy of the question is as though it would ever be the same for any other two people.
Yeah, it's like
Like-
asking people what having kids is like.
But that's not the point. The point is that, like when you watch The Brady Bunch, you always wonder whether Marcia and Greg are getting it on. And that's part of why you want to watch the show. And so when you watch the band, you wonder whether the bandmates are getting it on, and that impacts your fantasy of the whole thing. That's the point.
The one bit of mystery I've ever had in my whole goddamn life. And I ruined it. Because you thought it was a good idea.
Well, in my defense, I think you ruined it by writing a couple of songs that would have made it inevitable that you would have to talk about it.
I don't No, our second record was us getting married, and everyone was like, "That's a great photo."
That's really true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one ever asked us about that.
No.
Okay, so let's
Yeah.
talk about other influences that are not, necessarily musical.
One time, my dad started taking me up to the Canadian wilderness when I was 19, and the first time we went up with some friends, and we paddled in for a bajillion hours, and we got to this island, and that night, one of the guys in our group, my dad's best friend, Steve, also named Steve, was swimming. We had caught a bunch of fish, and they were on a stringer hanging off this rock, and I looked down. And I saw that one of the fish had been torn in half. And then I pointed it out to Steve, and he came over to take a look at it. And then he looked up at me, and then his eyes got really wide, and he jumped at me out of the water. And I grabbed him and I was pulling him out. And as I was pulling him out, I saw the largest snapping turtle I have ever seen chasing his foot with its mouth open. And in that moment, I finally put it together. Oh, it was about to crunch my friend Steve's foot. And it also, another thing snapped into focus, which was, oh, there is a thing that I have in my normal life that I don't have here. And the thing I have in my normal life is this subliminal idea that I'm bumper bowling. That whatever happens, that I'm bumper bowling. You know, bowling? But like they put bumpers in the gutters for like a kid's birthday party. I had this realization that in my normal life, there was always some version of a safety net where like somebody could show up and unfuck up what I did. And this was this moment that got me hooked on wilderness forever. Because it was this thing of like, oh, I am responsible for myself. I'm actually responsible for myself and the people I'm with. And this is a way that I can show them and myself that I love them.
Do you want more nature? Short nature.
That was probably too long.
It's good. Being in the Mazda with my dad and eating salt and vinegar chips in New Hampshire and listening to whatever tape we were listening to over and over again. Usually it was the Beatles. Sometimes it was Foreigner. I think the music listening experience totally changed when I got to sit in the front seat because I got to see how much he loved music. I remember wanting to roll the windows down to share the music with everybody.
What if end was begin? Then would men be like mothers, and the falling of others would be like the first leaves of flowers.
Cal Mazzara was a student teacher in band class when I was in 7th grade.
How old is he?
I have no idea. I mean, to a 7th grader, I would have assumed he was like in his late 40s. But now, I'm guessing he was probably 22. He was the first guy who told me I could be in a band. Like, I played saxophone in concert band. And then he decided as like an after school thing, he was going to put together like a rock band and we were going to learn covers. So I was like, that sounds really cool, but like, I don't play anything. And he was like, well, no one's playing bass yet. You should play bass. It's only one note at a time. And I was like, I could do that. And he was like, totally, you can. But I think before that, I assumed that I would never be in a band because being in bands was for people who were like cooler than me. And he was the first guy who was like, no, you can just like make a band. Like, just do it.
There is a way you can empower people by just assuming that they can do anything.
Yes.
And if you do that, people can.
Yeah.
It's like a
Because
new.
everything that's happened, some dude did. I don't know.
Man, I wish I could email the guy that taught jazz guitar in my high school and be like, fuck you for not letting me into music classes because I didn't read music, you little bitch. Yeah, you just let all the boys sing? Fuck you forever, my dog.
Oh my God.
What if darkness was light under cover of bright? We'd stalk, I pray. They can't see in the day. It's too white.
I think about sending Tom Bogdan flowers all the time.
Sweet Tom Bogdan.
Tom Bogdan is the man that taught me how to do warm-ups and also, like, gave me my start in vocal lessons. He taught me how to make my voice the negative imprint of my insides. But he was an amazing, kind man who would always say, yeah, well, just make sure, that it does what it does. He would also say really frank things. Like one time we were all singing in class together and he said, now, nobody in this class is particularly talented. But we're all trying together. Before Mountain Man went on our first tour, I was like, Tom, will you just show us how to fully warm ourselves up? And at the end of teaching us, oh my God, it's gonna make me cry. At the end of teaching us, we were all standing in a line, me and Molly and Alexandra, and he looked at us and he was sitting down at the piano and he said, well, I hope you all make a lot of money.
I was walking in the woods and I started thinking about what it would feel like to be a tree. All of the trees were reaching for the light and they each had taken on these very specific shapes, responding to what was working and what wasn't for them with where they were situated. It just became obvious to me that they had a consciousness. And I just started thinking about what that must feel like, what that existence felt like. As I was thinking about that, I started realizing that this tree couldn't really actively perceive me, that I was standing right next to it, but it couldn't see me because it's a tree. The next thought was, oh, it would be so egotistical of me to believe that there wasn't another thing like that for me. That because I was a human, I just couldn't perceive. It was this like great weightlifting. Knowing or not knowing wasn't my fault or my victory. I was born as a human being and I was living that life as well as I could. And that there was things on either side of that existence that I would never be able to understand.
Oh, life dying out in the ocean, turned to clouds, soggy birds raining down from the sky, having drowned. Oh, it's not what you think. It's a memory bank, and it's living in our mouths, so open wide. She's coming out.
That was Amelia Meath and Nick Sanborn of Sylvan Esso. The song is called What If from their new record, Free Love, which is out now. Is sylvanesso.com for more. I'm Erica Heilman. Thanks a lot for listening.
All right.
Love you.
Love you too.
All right.
Talk soon.
Bye.